Good morning, this is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for September 16th around 10 a.m. The Atlantic Basin continues to be extremely active. We have 3 systems on the map, so let's take a close look. Here is a look at the entire Atlantic Basin, visible satellite courtesy of NOAA. We have 3 systems. Let's start with Jose. We have this system right here between Bermuda and Florida. It will come about within 200 miles of the outer banks of North Carolina and then head up near the northeastern United States, the New England area, and then turn away from the United States. That's the projections from the National Hurricane Center and from the model data this morning. We also have Invest 96L here east of the Leeward Islands, the Windward Islands. The system is projected to generally move in the direction of the same areas impacted by Irma. So we'll get to the details on that. And then we have Tropical Depression 14 out in the East Atlantic, which is forecast to move generally west-northwest, run into some upper-level wind shear, so that's not going to be a factor down the road. Well, it could be. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But in the short term, the next 5 to 10 days, there's not much going on with this system out in the East Atlantic. So we're going to focus on these 2 systems right here and get all the details on them. Before I get to the details on these systems, I just wanted to mention that in the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, we were live each night at hurricanecity.tv and on our Facebook channel talking about all the things going on with Irma. And this started actually when it was hitting the Leeward Islands, and we were on nightly throughout the storm. And then when it actually hit Florida, we were covering it live as it was happening and covering the aftermath, which our last show was 2 nights ago, as millions were still without power in Florida. The other night during the show, I got a little bit frustrated with the lack of donations and funding that have been coming into Hurricane City, and kind of went on a little rant at the end of the show. And sure enough, people did step up, and we've gotten some good donations over the past week or so, especially since Irma hit. And we appreciate every dollar that comes into Hurricane City. What this is going to allow us to do is deploy a new remote camera technology that I've been eyeballing for a while, and I'm going to go ahead and get that purchased and start implementing that so we can improve on our remote technology. Here's a camera we set up in Fort Myers expecting a storm surge to come in, which never materialized. It ended up being down to a Category 1/Category 2 when it passed right near Fort Myers, just east of Fort Myers, and the storm surge never materialized. But this allows us to get up close to these storms without actually having to be in them and be in danger. Now the new camera should allow us to stream for a longer period of time. Here were my co-hosts during the live coverage. Bill Phillips on the right and Don Midget, both from Virginia Beach, were showing other images while they were waiting for my live camera to come back online, both the remote cam and or my dash cam. So a special thanks goes out to these 2 guys for the time and effort put in during this long marathon coverage of Hurricane Irma. And then remember, Hurricane Harvey was right before that, so this has been a non-stop project. A lot of the live video you see coming out of these hurricanes is shot from storm chasers. And a lot of these guys, they get in there, film the storm, and they get out real quickly. We like to get in there and actually tell people what happened when the wind came through. And here's an example of that. This was south of Naples. I was heading down toward the Tamiami Trail south of Naples when you make that bend toward the southeast to head towards the east coast. And there was tremendous damage down there, and some of these mobile home parks were completely shredded by the winds around 110, 120 miles an hour that came through Naples. So again, the donations are greatly appreciated, and it will go into upgraded equipment for the next hurricane that makes landfall so we can cover it for you. And by the way, any donations of $20 or more automatically puts you on our mailing list, which alerts you to when we are going to go live with live video, or doing shows or a coverage of any sort on hurricanes making landfall. So here is a floater loop of Hurricane Jose northeast of the Bahamas, and you can see there it's basically maintaining itself. It's not really getting any much better organized, maybe just slightly more circular, but what you see now is basically what the models are projecting for the future, as this remains probably a Category 1 as it drifts to the north. So using the HurTrack Pro, let's go ahead and put this into motion and see what's going to happen. It's going to pass within 200 miles of Cape Hatteras as a Category 1 hurricane, according to the National Hurricane Center. Then the system moves slowly off to the north and will pass well to the southeast of Long Island, New York, come within 200 miles. And this is where things get a little interesting, according to the National Hurricane Center. And this is fresh off the press. The 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center indicates that the tropical storm force wind field will impact New England, the Boston area, Cape Cod, Nantucket, all these areas off the northeast coast, maybe even Rhode Island up here will get some tropical storm force winds out of this. And then the system begins to pull away. You can see the core of it does not move on shore. It stays offshore and moves away off to the east. And this is going into the 20th, which is 4 days from today. The system would begin to pull away from the northeastern United States. So we're talking Tuesday here with a tropical storm potentially impacting the New England area and then moving slowly away from land. Here is a look at our new potential tropical cyclone number 15. The National Hurricane Center indicates that this will become our next named storm, which is Maria. The reason is our tropical depression number 14 has become Tropical Storm Lee. So this will be named Maria, and this is the one we're going to have to watch closely as it approaches the northern Leeward Islands in a few days. So let's look at the HurTrack. So here we are with the HurTrack program, and let's go ahead and animate our future forecast for what will become Maria, and that will happen tomorrow or late tonight, and the system will be closing in on the northern Leeward Islands, the same exact islands that were impacted by Hurricane Irma, unfortunately. And here we go into the 18th. This is Monday, and then we're approaching on Monday afternoon. The system is approaching. At this point, we have a hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane. And then we go into Monday night. Going into early Tuesday morning here, we have winds around 80 miles per hour right near Guadalupe and then just south of Antigua. Then we have the system in the nighttime on Tuesday. And again, this is subject to change, but these are all based on the fresh advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Unfortunately, this is going to impact the Virgin Islands, which were heavily hit by Hurricane Irma, and that would be on the 20th, which is on Wednesday. In the early morning hours, this would be passing by as a 90-mile-an-hour hurricane. And again, the intensity problems are always an issue with long-range forecasts, so we could see something stronger or weaker. More than likely, it's going to be stronger. And then we have this going into Wednesday evening, affecting Puerto Rico, dead on, right near San Juan, Puerto Rico. As, again, a Category 1 hurricane, maybe Category 2, could be major at this time. Again, intensity forecasts are very difficult, and that's where the forecast ends, going out 5 days. We're going into the early morning hours on Thursday of next week, having crossed the entire length of Puerto Rico and sitting off the north coast of Puerto Rico as a Category 1 hurricane. Finally, here is Tropical Depression number 14, which has just recently been upgraded to Tropical Storm Lee, and you can notice why. Look at the dark reds. The system is getting better organized, more circular looking, but again, the long range forecast from NHC indicates this will slowly dissipate. So let's take a look at the HurTrack on this one. And the animation on Lee shows that this is going to quickly dissipate here. You see it's a tropical storm for a couple of days, gets up around 45, 50 miles per hour, and then dissipates due to upper level wind shear in the East Atlantic. So taking one more look at the Atlantic Basin visible shot, amazing how much activity is going on out there right now. All three of these systems are better organized today. All I can suggest to people in the islands and people up in the northeastern United States is to pay attention to your local authorities, The local news stations will tell you what the threat is. It looks like for the Northeast, not going to be a big deal. There's going to be some wave action, some gusty tropical storm force gust, but the people in the islands, pay very close attention to your authorities. You could potentially have a hurricane rolling through the northern Leeward Islands, the same areas impacted by Wilma, and Puerto Rico could get hit harder by this one, Maria, than they will have been affected by Irma. Irma passed north of there, did cause some damage, power outages all over the island, but this one could be far worse. So pay attention to your local authorities, your local National Weather Service office for information on local details as to how bad this could be for your area. Anyway, broadcast plans coming up. I will be potentially hitting the road tomorrow down to the Florida Keys live on Ustream on our Ustream channel. That's www.hurricanecity.tv, or on our Facebook page. A live video will be streaming there throughout the day from the Keys. That's not etched in stone, but it's a possibility. I'll be heading down there, so take a look and keep an eye out for that. And broadcasting nightly will only resume when there are hurricane threats for the Atlantic Basin, and it looks like this will be a hurricane for the Caribbean, so we may do a couple of nightly shows coming up here on this. It looks like it's going to be a big threat. And, of course, if it becomes a threat to the United States, we'll do live coverage at that time as well. Again, thank you so much for the donations coming into Hurricane City right now. We need every bit of it to keep things going and to upgrade. That's it for now. I'll be back with another update video tomorrow, and we'll see where we stand on all these systems out in the Atlantic. Thank you, Jim. I'm Jim Williams. Thank you for watching.